G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds everyone well. Today we're going to show a very quick sample edit of this image that I was fortunate enough to photograph in the Australian Alpine region down in Kosciuszko National Park. It's a pretty straightforward edit, but an image that I was really happy with the results. I photographed this on a road trip around April last year. And I was fortunate enough to be there at a time where there was a bit of a cold snap come through, and we had some early seasonal snow, which I think just added to the image really nicely. So here we go. As you can see with the raw capture, it's a very, very flat image. I always try to have a fairly flat color profile set on my camera, whether I'm shooting stills or video. And this just helps with the edit process, not only to maintain highlight and shadow detail, but also have the most flexibility in post when it comes to color, contrast, and general edits. Now, this image was shot up at Charlotte's Pass, and it's a wonderful view. Some heavy clouds over the mountains. You can see a light dusting of snow. The general settings, it was photographed on a Canon R3. A 24-70 2.8 lens, and it was shot at 1/500th of a second, f9 at ISO 100. Now I've gone with these settings, this was shot handheld as well, but I've gone with these settings because I wanted a nice low ISO to minimize noise. f9 is a really sharp setting on this camera, so you get really nice detailed results. And the shutter speed was 1/500th, that's what it came out at, but certainly the crucial settings I went for were the aperture and the ISO. So a low ISO, again, to reduce noise. Aperture, because it's a nice sharp aperture for this particular lens. And it also brings in quite a lot of depth of field. And 1/500th of a second, which handheld is completely fine. There's no risk of motion blur based on how this image was shot. So generally what I do is I'll just start with some general edits. I'll add a little bit of contrast. I'll drop down the highlights, lift up the shadows a little bit. I'll usually sit on contrast around 30, highlights around -30, shadow boost a little bit, but not a great deal, maybe +10, +8. Color, we're going to add in a little bit of vibrance and saturation. And this is just going to help to give us a little bit of understanding of the color that we're going to see within the image. We're going to go down to detail, and we're just going to apply a little bit of sharpening and obviously a little bit of masking as well. If I hold down my Alt or Option key and slide along, I can see based on the white parts of the image which areas are having the sharpening applied. Obviously, if we look at the image as per normal, there's a large amount of area, obviously the sky with all the cloud that I don't want to apply sharpening to because there's simply nothing there to sharpen. Keeping in mind that if you do just apply blanket sharpening across the image, it can increase the appearance of noise if there is any in the image. With this image, there isn't really any because it was shot at very low ISO at only 100, but certainly adding in any sharpening without masking it to some specific areas will cause a little bit of excess noise. So if we just head down to optics as well, you can see that it's already been ticked by default as remove chromatic aberration and use profile corrections, which it's detected this lens here, which is great. All right, let's head back up to light, and I'm just going to start to play with the file a little bit more to see how I can push it, see what I can get out of it. Color, I'm going to push the saturation a little bit more. There's some nice color that's coming through in that sky, which I really want to bring out a little bit more. I always tend to start with overall adjustments before I start to go into specific areas to make changes. And I'm really interested in this area here in the sort of central part of the landscape that has a splash of sunshine coming down across it. And what I might do there is just with an adjustment brush, I'm going to just adjust that size a little bit. It's a nice feather there. I want it to blend nicely with other parts of the landscape. I might make further adjustments to that brush because it's obviously spilling out in quite a few areas. But I just want to add a bit of contrast, just specific to that area. And we're going to add in a little bit more saturation. That looks pretty good. Just going to increase the size of that brush a little bit. I just want to increase or push the drama in that sky just a little bit more. I'm just going to darken it down ever so slightly. One thing I've experienced many times spending time in the mountains is how significant weather patterns can feel. When you have a lot of space that you're, I guess, existing in the mountains, when weather happens, it can really make you feel like there's a lot of big stuff going on around you that you really don't have a lot of control over. And this is how it felt on the day that I shot this image. And it certainly feels like the weather was a big factor at the time and what it was to experience being there. So certainly with the clouds that were there, I'm just trying to, I guess, give a stronger presence to how they feel. We're just going to add a little bit more to the overall drama and feel of this image. And really what I want to do is draw people's attention to that highlight and the mountains. It's such an important thing to work to keep, I guess, the observer's focus on the areas of the image, certainly on the image itself, but on the areas of the image that you want to keep their attention. As you can see, because I started with a fairly flat image, the adjustments are really not major in a lot of ways. There's some color adjustments there, some exposure and contrast and saturation adjustments, but really it's not too far away from what was originally captured in camera, obviously with a fairly flat profile, but it gives us that flexibility to get the image back to what things were like on the day, but also what we want to do with the image creatively. Let's just go in and check some of that detail. Yep, that looks really good. Oh, that's a little bit too close. But yeah, no, I'm really liking where this image is sitting. Let's just have a look at the temperature. We might just do some, perhaps, temperature adjustments in some specific spots. I kind of feel like this foreground is sitting a little bit cool. So I'm just going to warm up that color temperature. And that way, again, the cool and cold of the clouds and the surrounding weather versus the warmth of that sunshine on the ground just helps to give us a little bit more focus and attention on the mountains themselves, and certainly where that sunshine is falling. I think that works really well. As you can see, it's a fairly straightforward edit. It hasn't really taken too much time at all. The important thing is always to start with the image as close to correct in camera as possible. The results will always come out better, particularly if you're printing the images a little bit larger, and it allows you to maintain the integrity of the data and the image itself and the pixels and the quality of print that you'll achieve by capturing as close to correct in camera as possible, making sure that you maintain those highlights and shadow areas. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's certainly an image that I would love to see in print, and look forward to making a few test prints to see if there's any further adjustments that I need to make. Hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, any questions are welcome in the comments below. I certainly enjoy and will be doing more of these sample edit videos to help you see how I implement the various techniques that I use, depending on the image and also depending on the results that I'm trying to achieve. Thanks again for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.